your family size and literal children, sons and daughters, their lives depend on whether you create less chaos in the home so that you can be fruitful and welcome those children into your family in a way that doesn't break you and doesn't lead to constant burnout. So we want to help you guys. That's why we're here. But man, there's some amazing tools in this toolbox.
Hi, welcome to the Family Teams Podcast. Our goal here is to help your family become a multi-generational team on mission by providing you with biblically rooted concepts, tools, and rhythms. Your hosts are Jeremy Pryor and Jefferson Bethke, and we can't wait to chat about all things family.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. So we are diving into a whole month, the month of July, and it's going to be in our Family Teams Accelerator about SOPs, Standard Operating Procedures. So a couple months ago, we did a whole month on training your kids. And we talked a little bit about in that the ideas of routines or having kind of figured out, okay, here are things where there are multiple steps. So much of actually trying to figure out how to lead your family, train your kids, kind of overcome chaos is identifying these repeated patterns that are creating chaos. And oftentimes the steps out of it isn't just so simply like training them on one thing. It's actually creating a whole procedure. So I really want to spend a whole month just talking about that. And I have with us, our friends for Family Teams and certainly of our family, Blake and Chandler Smith. So thank you guys so much for jumping on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Looking forward to talking through this stuff. This will be fun.
Yeah. So Blake, I know you had an epiphany about like, hey, there's some things that really work in business that we could port over to the family. So I want to like get that epiphany. Chandler, maybe you could introduce your family to us real quick too before we dive into that.
Yeah. Well, I'm Chandler. This is Blake. This is our seventh board.
Yeah, hey, number 7.
His first podcast.
Start them early, you know. If you're listening to this, we're holding up a baby that we have.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we have our oldest is about to turn 14. We have
just every other year.
But we have 3 boys and 4 girls. I'm trying to remember how many children we have.
How many is it? 7? Yes.
Yeah, 7 in all.
Yeah, and we live here in Cincinnati, maybe 20, 25 minutes from you. We spent some intensive time with you from a discipleship standpoint. You are on the board of one of my companies. I've been on your nonprofit board. We've kind of interacted professionally, personally, helped us through lots of difficult things. We've had a lot of drinks on your porch and steaks together. And so we love calling the Pryors our friends. So
awesome, man. Well, yeah, I love how you guys are taking so many like lessons for, okay, what is this? How can we do this in a way to survive and thrive? So we're always paying attention to the Smiths to figure out, okay, how are you guys doing? And as you guys have figured out different ways of like improving family, it's been really, really encouraging and helpful. So I'm super excited. So for you guys listening, Blake and Chandler are our community coaches for the Accelerator for the month of July. So you're going to hear this podcast today, but if you want to jump into the Accelerator, they're going to actually do a kind of a coaching call with anybody in the Accelerator on Zoom. So if you guys have more questions, if they're talking about something, but they're not really directly addressing your situation, it's a great time to jump into the Accelerator. So you go to familyteams.com, click on the Accelerator button. You can also they wrote this amazing playbook. We're going to look at a few highlights from it in this podcast about how to actually implement this in your family. So that's going to go out in the Accelerator in July. But if you want to get the free download of the 1-pager of tips for how to create SOPs for your family, you can go to familyteams.com/SOP and grab that download, and that'll get you guys started. But we'd love for you guys to jump into the Accelerator, hang out with the Smiths. And then we're also going to do a town hall with our family, talk about SOPs, but also anything else that you'd like to talk about at the end of the month of July. So we're going to drill into, so first of all, yeah, there's this world of like, okay, SOP sounds very businessy. So Blake, help me out. Like why would you use something like that in a family context?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. I hate that we're using this phrase because it does sound so lame. It's also like the category of business that I find most lame, which is like operations. But that's the area that I personally needed the most help. So our kind of journey of parents has gone hand in hand with our journey as entrepreneurs. So we read this crazy book by a guy named Jeremy Pryor when it was just a Google Doc, 13, 14 years ago. And it kind of encouraged us, A, to like think of our family as an organization that's multi-generational, and B, to maybe think of business as a way to fund that. And so that caused us to quit our jobs, start a company, and it ended up being a tech company, and then later started an agency that started another tech company. And so as we're raising these little humans, we're also starting businesses and managing other human beings. And so it's always been kind of like meshed together. So a lot of times what I was learning at work, I was immediately taking and applying at home.
Hmm.
And in reality, it's really just leading other human beings, right? And we're leading little human beings or leading adult human beings. And so a lot of those skills do kind of overlap. And so I would say we've probably leaned into some of the little bit more kind of startup-y, more tech or business oriented terminology like standard operating procedures or SOPs. All we're talking about is a checklist to get chores done around the house or a checklist to do something right. And so in business, you have this thing called an SOP, a standard operating procedure, which is a one-page document outlining exactly how you want something to get done. And what a lot of business is documenting these different systems and then ensuring that they're done correctly. The best example of that probably would be McDonald's is a great example. If anybody's ever watched the movie The Founder, there's this amazing scene where they draw out in chalk on a tennis court an imaginary kitchen, McDonald's kitchen, and then they rehearse almost like a dance going back and forth from station to station. And then we're going to turn, flip the burger here and we're turn around and not run into each other as we're gathering the fries. And so they rehearse it over and over again until you can walk into a McDonald's and within a minute get a hot burger. And that was completely new technology. Franchises existed before that time, but they'd never been that consistent before. And that obviously revolutionized fast food, and has done a world of good for our health as a nation, right? We're all better off
Absolutely. Yeah.
because of that. But it's like that concept actually scaled a billion-dollar business, which is this idea of like, oh, if we can rehearse and practice a specific system, it can actually create order out of chaos, right?
Mm.
So we
Yeah.
took that concept that we learned in business, and I've got a bunch of these documented in my company now. And it's like, cool, let's do the same thing at home. So whenever you come across a chaotic thing, and I think this is probably a good differentiator, we're not talking about chaotic behavior like training children to not throw their food on the ground. That's a different type of training. What we're talking about here is we're talking about the operational thing of getting in the car, cleaning up before dinner time, maybe cleaning up after dinner time, brushing your teeth, all those different things. Whenever we come across something that there seems to be a log jam happening, oh, this is an opportunity to document, a one-page sheet of paper that you put up on the wall or you put on the inside of the medicine cabinet and walk through step by step. This is how we want to do it. And we're actually going to train you on how to do it, walk them through it. And suddenly it just releases all this tension and real, like even relational tension you can have around that. And the chaos starts to dissipate. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, we have a little bit more harmony.
Mm.
And this is a game of whack-a-mole. We got 7 kids, 14 and under. And so as soon as we solve one thing, another one pops up. And so this is a lot of our life is just kind of recreating these systems. And it has added more harmony and less chaos in our
Oh,
life.
good. Awesome. Well, Chandler, I'd love to hear from you too. Like, so when Blake gets excited about, okay, this is working at work, like maybe we could try this at home. Maybe talk a little bit about how that hits you and why embrace something like this in the home that's working in another context like work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think as a mother, if I think about throughout the day, the times when I am most likely to feel like I lose my cool or like lash out or use a harsh word, it's always
Hypothetical. That doesn't happen.
hypothetically. It's always kind of at these operational pinch points.
Mm.
We're supposed to be getting in the car and people aren't obeying or they aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. We're trying to brush teeth at the end of the day. Like it's when we're trying to do something, when everyone's just hanging out, we're fine. But when we're trying to like do something together, that's when I have noticed in myself, that's when I fall into sin, when I like will yell at a kid or just not be the kind of mother I'm called to be. And so I feel like this tool has been really helpful, and not something that I would have come up with coming from a background in education. It's something that have been really helpful in giving us a structure for getting through those pinch points in our day.
Awesome. Very cool. And Blake, yeah, what would you say for you is the highest level reason? So for somebody's listening to this and saying, man, should we do this? Are there any other kind of big picture why reasons that are important and kind of call out?
Yeah. Um, I think we're in this weird state in human history where in 1950, 1960, something like that, suddenly we got dropped into our laps this new technology called birth control. And suddenly, for the first time through a lot of different means, we have the ability to decide how many children we have. This is very new in the grand scheme of humanity. This is a very new technology, and so I feel like in obviously in family teams, and even our church, there's this kind of ongoing question that parents have. It's like, how many kids should we have? What's the right number of kids to have? And it's so new, and I actually love asking people, how did you decide how many kids you want to have?
Yeah.
Because everyone has a different reason
Yep.
because it's new. Like, there aren't norms yet on determining there isn't even, like, a moral norm yet unless you're in certain, corners of Christendom. And so, how do we decide that thing? And one of the most often recurring things I hear is it just got too chaotic,
Mm.
right? Like, it's so much chaos, I
Mm.
can't handle it anymore. We can't have any more kids. And I think that that's actually real,
Yeah.
that there's a tension between being fruitful, which is having a lot, or I guess or multiplying, which is having a lot, and being fruitful, which is like, okay, is it good? Right? Or is
Yes.
this fruit rotten? And there's a real tension between fruitful and multiply. And like, right, that's a verse, which is like we're commanded to be fruitful and multiply. And so I think that this actually is one of the levers for fruitfulness, which is like, can I create is this family beautiful? Right.
Mm.
And I think that if chaos is the thing that's keeping us from having more children, and if we think about if children are additional souls who we can raise to be disciples, who then can grow and make more disciples,
Mm.
right? And can impact the world. This is the primary mechanism through which we can have impact on earth in making disciples is through having children who are aligned with our family vision.
Yeah.
And if the limiter on that is chaos, then this is like the top priorities. We got to eliminate chaos because it's important. We are commanded to do this thing. And I think that there are a lot of limiters that are real. There are health limiters, there are chaos limiters, there's like all sorts of different things. But it's like if this is one of those, I want to remove this one.
Yeah.
And so that's a big motivator for us. And I felt like I heard from the Lord last summer, right when we were found out that we were pregnant with this guy, Ford, of you got to either level up or tap out. And it was a thing of like, oh, what's gotten you here from a skill standpoint as a father is not going to get you to the next phase. So either
Yes.
you need to stop having kids or you got to get better at this thing.
Yeah.
And I felt like that's what I was being called to do. And so that led to a lot of writing, a lot of practicing, a lot of new systems and documenting things for us. And I feel like we are in the process right now of leveling up, which means all of our processes are the fuselage is shaking. And that's a good thing. That's good for my soul. It's good for our family
Yeah.
that we're doing that. And I think that that in itself is a very gratifying pursuit.
That's really good. Yeah, I think you're kind of putting your finger on the fact that oftentimes we have this conversation about the number of children. We assume that we're all working from the same modern Western toolbox, which leads to enormous chaos once you get past two or three kids. And a lot of families are unaware that there's a whole nother toolbox that can create a lot of order and harmony in the home, but you do have to level up. And it depends if you really love life, if you can't wait to bring into the world more children that are going to be able to expand the kingdom, to be able to reflect your family's values. I just think about like, man, I want there to be more Smiths in the world. Like, I love what you guys are building. And I think that if there's some way that you can multiply, and that is just by definition a good thing, like you said, if it's fruitful, then we want to figure that out. And so we need to help each other out with this because some of you guys listening to this, your family size and literal children, sons and daughters, their lives depend on whether you create less chaos in the home so that you can be fruitful and welcome those children into your family in a way that doesn't break you and doesn't lead to constant burnout. So we want to help you guys. That's why we're here. But man, there's some amazing tools in this toolbox. So I want you guys both, maybe we'll start with you, Chandler, to give me an example of an SOP and kind of how it worked out in your family, something that is working for you guys that you've tried. So yeah, you can drill into like the procedure for how you create these. But I would like to get examples as well on, okay, like let's drill into how this actually works in your home.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like the longest running one for us has been just getting from the house to the car, for the longest time, for me, that would take almost like 2 hours to like order everything, get everyone out. And it just got to the point with 6 kids before we had him that I was like, I just can't leave the house with 6 children. This is just too much work. It's just too much. So we worked to we put that on the list of like, all right, this is some chaos that needs some ordering. We put that on our SOP list. And um do you want me to just like describe what we do
Sure.
or how
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Give
okay.
me some details. I'd love to hear
Start
about
the
it.
end state is there's a sheet of paper. We have
Yeah.
a Sprinter van, a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van with a high roof and kind of a soft ceiling. And on the top of that ceiling is a push pin sheet of paper fixed to the ceiling with the steps to getting in the car. And so literally that's
Awesome.
where it resides, is there's actually a document. So then
Mm.
if you get in our car, you'd be like, what a weird family that has a sheet of paper just like push pin to the top. But yeah, you want to talk about how we created that sheet of paper and how it works?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we ended up so we have three older kids, three younger kids, and then a baby, and we ended up just pairing up the older kids with the younger kids. So each
Mm.
older kid is responsible. They know they've been trained multiple times of like how to we would always set up the training when we didn't have to go somewhere. So
Okay.
we would just set up a scenario where like, all right, for the next 30 minutes, we're gonna practice you getting yourself ready and then you getting your buddy ready. So the 14-year-old is in charge of getting the 7-year-old totally ready, and the 11-year-old's in charge of getting the 5-year-old. They're responsible for getting their shoes on, socks on, coats on,
Underwear on?
underwear on. And
Yes.
then
That's on the list. It has to be called out specifically.
unfortunately that became an issue for our family a couple times. Um, but then, whatever other things they needed for wherever we're going, that was their responsibility to do that. So we would just train that when we didn't have a deadline, because I think that for me, that was always when I would start to, have smoke come out of my ears, like, we have to be there 10 minutes ago and we're all late and it's because no one's doing what I'm telling them to do.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, what else?
Yeah.
That's so
So
good.
we started by selecting it. Then we documented the steps.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's literally a checklist of, is this done? Is this done? Is this done? Is this done? Right.
Yes.
And so that's like shoes on, coats on, what else? Buckled, underwear on, socks on. What else was there in there? And then there's an attitudinal thing, which is it has to be done with a positive attitude and a diligent attitude in a timely manner. And there's a reward at the very top of the thing, which is like, if you do this thing, you get a breath mint. Right.
Nice.
And so we have a big old bag of breath mints that we keep at the top, and that's the reward that you get. And so as soon as everybody gets in the car, everyone goes, can I have a mint? Immediately, that's the first thing I ask. And so I point to the list and I say, well, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And I go through the list. And if they say yes to all of those things, then I give them a mint. And if they say no to one of those things, I don't give them a mint. And it's important. You got to have there's tears the first time that they miss one of them, but pretty quickly they realize, okay, this is my path to mint.
Mm.
And apparently we are very sugar incentivized. I think we even got
Yes.
some sugar-free ones from the dollar store. These are not lifesavers. These are
Places very, very, very often.
we're not going, yeah, right, sure. But yeah, and so then you practice it when it's a low stakes environment, right? And you practice it over and over and over again until you feel satisfied. And then when it becomes time for the high stakes environment, I remember the first time that you texted me, you were going to our homeschool co-op, you had to be there like 8:30 in the morning. And you were like, maybe you'd arrived there, you were driving there, and you're like, I just walked out to the car and all the kids had buckled themselves up, had their coats on, their shoes on, everything was in the car, and I just got in and drove away.
Mm.
And I was like, nailed it. Like it's such an
Yes.
addicting feeling to take something that was so chaotic and that would cause tears and all this different thing, and now it just works. It's addicting. It really is, or addictive. Like I really enjoy finding those things and then making that good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I think that's that moment where oftentimes people don't realize how many decisions you make because you're afraid of the chaos. So I've seen a lot of people that literally, as soon as they start having kids, they just will not get into the car because just too many steps, too much work. Imagine having 7 kids and trying to do that and knowing that we really want to be involved in things. Like we want to be at this co-op, we want to go to this church, we want to experience things with our friends. We want to go to our friend's house and all of that, all those repeated 5 to 10 times a week where you have to get in the car, man, that could just create so much frustration for your
Yes.
family. So solving that's a huge deal. I think you guys have both called out really specifically the importance of actually practicing like drills. Like a lot of times when I think about, at work or if you're starting a sport, there's a sense where you spend a lot of time practicing. You have people that just sit there and watch how you throw the ball. You over and over again, you practice these things. But most families never do that. There's nothing that they actually drill on. They never practice it in that low stakes environment. And we just, again, we feel like, well, it's a family. It should just always be organic. There shouldn't be anything that intentional. We'll be really intentional when it comes to our, even our sports or our schooling, all these other areas, our work, we're going to go into training. But man, we don't want to train for something that actually just a repeated family activity, right?
No.
That would create a lot of peace for us. And so much of what we try to do with you, as you guys listen to this, is like trying to overcome some of that muscle memory that's really that puts family in a category where we don't do anything intentional. We
Yes.
don't actually try to create, peace. So
And what's
with
the
that.
alternative, right? So
Yeah.
the alternative to training. So it's like, okay, sure, it's lame. It's weird. You're sitting and your neighbors see you with all your kids and you got, your referee shirt on and your hat and you're like trying to train them to go through and do the thing. That's weird, right? What's the alternative? You could have those expectations in your head and never communicate them and then get angry when they don't do it.
Yeah.
That's an option. Or the other option is you just have zero expectations for your family.
Mm.
Right. And that's no good either because then nobody likes your kids and you don't like your kids because like you're not holding them to any sort of standard.
Yeah.
So the option is either you're, high expectations and you don't communicate it,
Yep.
or low expectations and then your family kind of stinks. And so it's like this is actually a far better, although still awkward solution.
I think but it also is, you're not just training the thing that you're training your children, like how to take responsibility for themselves, how to take responsibility for other people. It's really like training in just being like a human and a responsible person and a mother and father someday. You are like giving them those gifts ahead of time.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're demonstrating a skill set
Yeah.
that for us is super. We feel like we're clawing and pulling it out of entrepreneurship. For them, it's going to be second nature. They're just going to be like, well, that's what parenting is.
Yeah.
And so we get to carry that burden for them. But yes, they're going to have that skill. And then I think you're saying something too, which is that it's ordering their souls,
Yes.
right? Which is that all these things in their physical environment and even their calendar throughout the day, those things are actually shaping the inside of them. Like it's shaping their souls. And when there's chaos around them, they're going to have chaotic souls, which results in sin and in coping behaviors, right? But when there's order around them, it'll actually result in trust and safety and relational harmony.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what's more important than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, that there's sort of like this deeper thing that we want to have houses of peace, right?
Yeah.
Shalom. And it's interesting in the Gospels, Jesus told the disciples to go and look for a house of peace, in every village. And you're like, what is that? What is that? What is a house of peace? Or, that where there's a person of peace there who's creating a place a peaceful atmosphere. And that Hebrew word shalom, that idea of like things are in order, things are complete, things are being overseen, and that has, all the layers all the way down to that soul layer. Like, and a lot of, I think kids grow up with a certain level of chaos. There's all this anxiety about life and about like, man, are there tools available to actually, create that kind of peace where we can create the outcome that we really believe we need to have. And I think you're training them. No, this is how you do it. You have to like look at the things that repeat, figure out what's broken, like come up with a new pattern, a pattern that is really effective for everyone, train in it, and then bam, you're starting to live differently. It's not that difficult, but again, we do this in so many arenas in life. It's just that family has been, we've been kind of trained to think that it's off limits to do anything with this level of intentionality.
Yes.
So yeah, that's so good. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this. I'd love to hear if there's any other like last things as you think about somebody who's listening to this, like they're interested. They're like, wow, this might work. Any other elements to this? Chandler, we'll start with you, and then Blake, I'd love for you to kind of close with anything that would be helpful. But yeah, Chandler, think about that mom who's listening to this. Anything that you would say to her as she's like, SOPs, maybe we should do that.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say pick the time in your day where you get the most frustrated.
Okay.
Is it right before dinner when you're trying to make dinner and the kids are hungry and the whole house is a mess? Work on an SOP to make that hour good. Figure out how to like right now. I'll just okay at 4 o'clock in our house in 1 hour,
Mm.
everyone will quietly put down what they're doing, go to their assigned rooms in our house, and pick up, tidy up, make sure everything's in order. And that happens now without me telling them to. They know that that is what we do at 4 o'clock,
Mm.
and it happens every single day. So I get to finish dinner in a quiet house that's all tidied up. And that is from not just like one season of training that SOP, that's from 10 years of training that SOP. But it's so fruitful and it's so wonderful. So just pick the biggest pain
Yeah.
point in your life and work
Yeah.
on that one thing and then do
So
the next
good.
thing.
Yeah. Imagine taking the most frustration that you repeatedly experience with your family and turning that experience into a peaceful experience. What
Yes.
will that do to your peace of mind?
Yes.
What will that do in your home? So that's really good. Blake, what about you?
Thinking the practical, I think that's exactly right. Like we just need to choose a thing. And honestly, by just looking at your life and saying what's the most frustrating or chaotic thing, you're actually 80% of the way there. Because the solution is actually, probably what the solution is. And so to write it down, it doesn't have to be some big thing. It can literally be a sheet of paper with a Sharpie and you just start writing a list or something like that. Like you're going to be able to go pretty far. I think most of the time we just live in reactive mode. And so just doing that, you're going to get pretty far with that. The one, if I'm going to leave somebody with something, I think there is like a one size fits all band-aid that we have for chaos in modern Western America. And that one size fits all band-aid is simplicity. And we say, what I'm experiencing chaos, what I need is simplicity or minimalism. And it's
Mm.
this thing of like, I need to just cut things out and then everything will be okay.
Mm.
And I think that is sometimes true. Like I believe like when it comes to clothing, I'm like, yeah, let's do a capsule wardrobe. Let's keep it really simple. I think that makes a ton of sense. Uh, that is not the only solution to things, right? Sometimes what you need is a system. And that's actually not necessarily simplicity. It's actually you need to create a structure and then things can thrive on those things.
Mm.
And if your solution is always simplicity to every single problem, you're going to live a very small,
Right.
sterile, unenjoyable, non-relational life.
Mm.
And so especially with family, if you want to have a big, thriving life at home, then you're going to have to embrace some sort of system. And yeah, I think it's a worthy pursuit.
That's a great point. Yeah. Yeah. That idea of simplicity is so individualistic. And
Yes.
the Proverbs, it contrasts the simple with the wise. And there's even this really interesting picture that Solomon describes, and he's like, leave your simple ways behind. And this woman who's taking different wines and mixing them in this complex manner, and she's like offering this much more complex, but like you say, much more enjoyable experience. And this is contrasted with the simple, but yeah, we have sort of elevated the idea of simplicity because that way you can just look. It makes a really good consumer, individualistic consumer. Just look out for what's good for you. Cut people out of your life, cut things out of your life. Just and obviously there are times where, like you said, that is the answer. But man, if you're trying to raise a multi-generational family, that's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of moving parts to that. And we need to really be diligent to manage that well. One of the things that, like you pointed out in when you were presenting this to our group integrated was, that we're commanded to manage our households well. And that word management, right, is important. And oftentimes we don't have management level tools to actually bring peace into our home. And this is one of those management level tools. If you want to make sure that you are, obeying those commands to manage our household well, then let's figure that out. So, all right, just so you guys remember, this month of July is all about how to use SOPs to create peace in the home. And so Blake and Chandler will be on the Zoom in July. So you can go to familyteams.com, click on the accelerator. You can get the free download at familyteams.com/SOP. So yeah, we really excited. Thank you guys so much for jumping on here today, but especially for being community coaches in the accelerator this month. I think it's going to be a
Yeah.
huge blessing.
I'm really excited about doing the coaching with everyone. And if you're on the fence of like, should we do this thing? Is this the right thing to do it? 30 days, we're going to take the most chaotic thing in your life and we're going to turn that into something that it creates peace in your life. What is that worth? That's worth a couple hours. Like it's worth a couple dollars. It's worth a couple hours. That's kind of the bar for success that I'm imagining for this thing is we want to take whatever is chaotic and we want to eliminate thing and actually put something that's life-giving in its place. And I don't know what is a better use of time or money than that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So jump in there. We'd love to have you guys. And thank you again for jumping in, Blake and Chandler, to the accelerator this month and for sharing this tool with us.
You do.
yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Family Teams podcast. If you're enjoying this content or have learned something new, please make sure to leave a rating and review and share with a friend. To stay up to date with our events, new content, and products, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Family Teams.